Hi, everyone. It's Jen on the go. In today's video, we're talking with Christian, who has his own YouTube channel, Call Me Lil. Christian is definitely one to watch. He shares a profound and an incredibly important message for gig workers on his channel, and I want you guys to know about him. Call Me Lil is here with us today. Okay, let's go. Hi, Christian. Thank you so much for being with all of us today on this channel, all the way from London.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure. And yes, all the way from London. My name is Christian from Call Me Lil, and I have been publishing a few videos about the gig economy. I do have some opinions about it that some people resonate with, but some people think are less than popular, I suppose.
Christian, one of your most recent upload was a video you posted in July of 2021, and that was titled $12,000 in my last month of DoorDash, I'm done. You do resonate with a lot of gig workers. And like you said, you're also meeting some resistance as well to those who do rely on gig work full time. But tell us about that video, which is really gaining a lot of traction since you originally posted it.
That was my first video out of the gate when I was pretty much finished with gig work. My gig work was never really it was never supposed to be a full-time career. It was never supposed to be something that I was going to do long-term. And so as soon as I had enough money, I'm like, I'm out of here. that was kind of like, I made $12,000. Now I'm done. I paid off some of my debts, and I kind of got out of the trouble that I was in. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm done. I recorded the video as kind of like a strategy guide, walking people through the steps that I took, the strategy that I developed over the course of about 12,000 deliveries. I was hoping that it could help other people. I knew that there was going to be some backlash because people are going to say, yeah, that's impossible. Everybody promises X, Y, and Z.
Christian, you did state that you made $12,000. There are a lot of gig workers that would say, holy cow, that is a ton of money. First of all, there are two questions here. How long did it take you to make that much money? And secondly, others would say, okay, why are you done if you can make this type of revenue?
It did take me about 84 hours a week on average. So that is like 2 full-time jobs. It's not a small amount of work. It comes down to, I was working all day, every day, from morning till evening. And if you were to work just the evenings and just the weekends and kept it down to your best 40 hours, I still think you could have made 7,000, 7,500 or something like that using those exact strategies. But I am done because I never intended that to be my full-time job. I have a family, I have a wife and kids. I'm a photographer, I'm a content creator. It was essentially just like, I've got this period, I'm going to dig us out of a hole, and then we're going to go back to the life we want to live. So in terms of why am I done? It's like, I got everything I wanted out of delivery. We were burdened by expenses and debt and the difficulty. At the end, when on my last month, we just survived, a year of the pandemic. So it was kind of like my business took a downturn again during the pandemic. And so that was always the intention. It was to dig us out of this hole that we buried ourselves in. And then we wanted to live as freely as we possibly could. And we really enjoy the freedom and flexibility that comes from having our own businesses, which to a certain extent the gig apps can give us, but not to the extent that we actually want. There's no scalability in the apps, but there is scalability in photography work. We have a lot of things in the works that will essentially allow us that freedom, but also the stability without it being tied to a location or worried about whether an entire industry is going to end.
So for right now, the phase of gig work is behind you. Is this, do you think, permanent, or will you still continue to rely on gig apps to fill in the gaps here and there?
That can help me fill in my gaps, but I don't believe that I will go back to DoorDash. I think that we're already on the decline in terms of what you can make on an hourly, and I think that it's only going to get worse from here. I kind of got in at a really good time, and I formulated my strategy at a really good time. And I do think that there is still a lot of money to be made. I don't need it now, and it's only going to get worse from here. So I'm probably done.
You said in one of your videos that you believe gig work is kind of a trap. And I would also like to add, I have a lot of gig workers, especially Instacart shoppers, reach out to me in so much despair because they have literally devoted their time and energy since day one onto these apps that really, they're being controlled at this point by an algorithm, and they lose their jobs or they can't make the money anymore. And they say, please help. I'm begging you. I have the emails, they ask what I can do to help. And a lot of these gig workers also say, we are independent contractors, we have freedom, we have flexibility, almost
Yeah.
comparing themselves in a way to freelance work. When you do gig work, not so much, because if you have a car and you have a pulse and you can fill out a form, you can be a gig worker. I don't mean any disrespect by that, but there is a low barrier to entry. And I know there is money to be made, but these big tech companies don't look at us like we are true independent contractors or freelancers. Like you just said in your photography business, that is truly freedom. Being able to work with whomever you would want to work with, how you determine you're getting paid. What are your thoughts about gig workers being in this independent contractor category?
Yeah. So essentially, in my opinion, I haven't been a W-2 employee for 10 years. I have been what I would call, what I'd like to think is an entrepreneur. I've been a business owner, I've been an independent contractor, and I do think that this gig work is somewhere between those two things. It's obviously you have the freedom and flexibility to work whenever you want. You have some degree of autonomy and some degree of, you have some ability to choose how much money you want to make, depending on how hard you want to work. But at the same time, there's no growth, there's no scalability. You're taking all the risks of a business owner, but you're not receiving any of the long-term benefits. Yes, the money can be good at times. However, as a photographer, I had employees, and I can theoretically scale that up to as big or as small as I want. I could be making millions of dollars without actually having to touch the camera. As gig workers, we are living in this world where we're somewhere in between, but essentially the corporations, the company, they have total say in what we do, where we work, how much we make. They can decide, and they can cast you aside at the blink of an eye. They don't have to think twice about it. So I do think that it is especially dangerous to think of yourself as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, because you are at the total mercy of these apps who have unlimited options in terms of who they're going to hire. Like you said, low barrier to entry equals easily oversaturated. And now not every market is oversaturated right now, but it's only a matter of casting you to the side. There's so many people out there that can do this job. And so, as I spoke about in one of my videos, I believe that their algorithms are going to get more efficient. Each app is going to take over individual markets, and so the money is going to go down and down and down further. And as their algorithms get more efficient, they need even fewer drivers to fill in the need of their customers. And so we could have an oversaturated market without even adding new drivers. And at that point, I personally believe that they will start kicking drivers off for no reason.
I noticed that a lot of gig workers get very defensive when I talk about even Instacart. Like, first of all, it's not your child. I'm not saying your child is ugly, but these gig apps are really, really ugly. And when you come to me, you say you've been deactivated and now you can't pay your light bill, it's maddening and it's disheartening because it doesn't have to happen. So what would you say to all of the gig workers who are making it work? Like, you had a $12,000 month and they're like, listen, we've got this. What would you say to them who right now this is their everything?
I would say, yeah, I had it too. And the truth is that you might have it for a little bit longer, but the truth is you can't depend on it, because you have to see like this. I mean, this is kind of the evolution of work. There are a lot of people comparing your ability to get fired and the instability of the job market in general to saying there's jobs are the same. But the truth is that they're not really the same, because traditional jobs, even though they're not as stable as they used to be, they still offer more security. They still offer more stability than this gig work. And in the long run, I'm not trying to like upplay the benefits of a W-2 job. I don't have one. I don't like them. But what I am trying to say is I do think that as a business owner, if you want to be a business owner, you need to learn how to predict the market, because that's what business owners do. And so if I'm predicting the market, I'm telling you this economy, this market is going to continue to decline over the next 5 to 10 years, and eventually it's going to be gone entirely. As a business owner, predicting the market, I can say right now, this is not a good bet, right? It was good while it lasted, and it might continue going for a little bit longer. But in the long run, you need to plan your exit. I say diversify your income, work on a business. I mean, you don't have to go out and get a W-2 job. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you need to work on yourself, work on your skills, take the money that you've made and invest in something else. Even if that investment doesn't pan out, there are lots of options, and having a diverse income is always going to be more secure than just putting all your apples in one basket. So to them, I would say at the very least, like, just diversify so that you've got a little more security.
That's really good advice, Christian. Thank you. You also mentioned in one of your videos that all of the apps are getting better and better. And I quoted you at tricking the drivers, and that DoorDash is getting more efficient at paying less, and eventually they won't pay you at all. So here we are running, I like to call it on the hamster wheel, like this, just exhausting ourselves to the point of now we're mentally wiped out. Can you please elaborate a little bit more about those two statements, which I thought were really interesting?
Okay, so essentially during the time that I worked at DoorDash, they've done a bunch of things. One of the things is that they changed their app. This seems like such a small thing, but it actually makes the biggest difference. They switched their app, so it's harder to tell if you're taking a double order or a single order. So if I see something that pays me $8.50, before I would know if I have to take 2 deliveries versus 1 delivery. But now they've kind of, you can still tell if you're looking for it, but they made it a little bit harder to tell if it's actually a double order. And so there have been a couple of times after they made that update that I accepted an order that was like $8.50, and I didn't know that I had to take 2 orders until I got to the first restaurant. I didn't realize. They're pulling these kinds of tricks to trick a driver into taking a double delivery that really should pay the same amount as a single delivery. The point here is that they're getting better at using visual cues, and GrubHub is doing the exact. GrubHub and Uber Eats both around the same time, maybe a little bit later, also changed their apps to trick the drivers into taking double orders instead of single orders. And they're copying each other. So it's not like you're going to get away from it by switching apps or something like that. They're also getting better and better at paying people less. And I mean, you don't have to look any further, obviously, than them lowering the base pay. It used to be $3, now it's $2.25. They're also changing things up. So it used to be like they hide tips, right? If you accepted, it used to be that if you accepted a delivery that was $8.50, it was almost always more than that, like $11, $12 or something like that. They switched that. First, I thought that was deceptive to begin with, but they switched that so it could be any amount, can be any amount. So you really don't know how much you're making before you accept the order. And then when they made that switch, you used to be able to call support and ask them how much it was actually going to be. And then they stopped doing that as well. So essentially, they're hiding everything from you, and you're expected to pick up orders with an expectation that it's higher than it actually is. They've made it so the drivers depend on their orders being bigger than what they're actually seeing. And as a multi-apper, I learned not to listen to that, because they're always trying to trick you. They're evolving every day. They're changing. There was another thing that they recently started doing where if you keep declining orders, they just put you on pause. And sometimes they put you on pause for literally 1 second before they just end your dash, and then your shift is over.
Christian, I call that algorithmic manipulation.
Totally. And you know what? They actually do, like, that's exactly what it is, because they know who is going to fall for that kind of stuff and they know who isn't, and they're going to do it more often to people who decline more often. So it is completely based on algorithm. It would be really easy for them to make excuses to deactivate people that they just don't like. I have no doubts that is in the works, that is somewhere in the future, if it isn't happening already. And the truth is that just no other profession evolves this fast to screw over the workers. In my opinion.
You're not kidding. And I noticed you did get a little pushback when you did say these apps will eventually, well, specifically DoorDash, these apps will eventually be gone. So take it while you can. And a lot of people said, you don't know that. What makes you say that? But can you please explain from your opinion why you think that this is happening and why you see this trajectory moving forward, that they will eventually be gone?
I have a couple of reasons, but I can tell you one thing that DoorDash is working on that I think that I have no doubt that Instacart is probably also working on. There's something called DashMart that I don't think they've launched yet. They have plans to in the future. If you want to look at any information, there's something called DoorDash Labs, and they have a blog about all of the stuff that they're working on, including their algorithm, their automation, and their robotics they're all working on. And it's actually quite interesting. But essentially what DashMart is it's a replacement for convenience stores. And so in the near future, it could replace stores like 7-Eleven, it could replace stores like Safeway and Albertsons, and DoorDash could choose not to list those stores at all because they're going to be competitors. And so DoorDash is essentially creating their own stores. They could in the future create their own restaurants as well. And they could in the future also make their stores, DashMart, completely robotic, with entirely automated autonomous vehicles taking the deliveries to the driver. I don't think that that's very far out of the realm of possibilities. But the reason that I think that the delivery jobs in particular, the food delivery jobs in particular, are going away is because since I made that first video, I've been doing a lot of research about Tesla's competitors. and they're already launching autonomous vehicles. Uber has called autonomous vehicles their key to profitability. Somebody like Uber and Uber Eats is calling that their key to profitability. You know that all of these businesses are not profitable. They're all losing investor money at the moment. And so they're looking for ways to cut out their biggest expenses, and that is the people who work there. So essentially what we have is we have a bunch of companies with virtually unlimited money working on this problem of actually having human workers, because that's what's costing them all their money. And so you can have your opinions about how widespread these autonomous vehicles are going to be in a decade, which is when I predicted that this job will kind of come to an end. But the truth is that they are already being used. They're being used in London, they're being used in LA, they're being used in San Francisco. They're not being used in New York yet, but they have them in Dallas, in Houston, in Las Vegas. They're being used everywhere on public streets. They're getting regulatory approval all over the country, and it's only a matter of time before they completely take over. I guess to answer the question, why do I think that it's going to end? Why do I think this job is going to come to an end? Is, well, it's on the decline. They're going to continue getting more efficient. They're going to continue their market dominance. And eventually, 10 to 12 years from now, at least in the cities, they're going to be completing all of their deliveries with autonomous vehicles. And in the small towns, they're going to have market dominance and low wages, if not already autonomous vehicles. There's really no reason to think that they won't do that.
Christian, that is really so interesting. And while we're on the topic of moving forward and evolution, it's bound to happen. These apps will not keep running the way they are, how we know them. As we speak, cities such as New York City are working on more regulatory oversight on how these gig apps control or treat their independent contractors, their gig workers. What are your thoughts about that? This is a topic we don't have to definitely go deep in, but what do you think about a little bit of regulatory oversight? Because some of these apps, honestly, they're so exploitative, it's sickening. The fact that now gig workers are allowed to use a restroom or to be able to see the tips, full transparency.
I mean, obviously, we need those rules in place because workers are being exploited and essentially their livelihoods are at stake. But I do think I'm of the opinion that any increased burden that you're putting on these companies is just going to hasten the arrival of autonomous vehicles, and these jobs are going to end faster than if you didn't do that. So I'm definitely in favor of everyone being treated with dignity, making a living wage, being able to support their families, and also being able to use a restroom when they need to. I have never had that problem, but I can imagine. But I at the same time, I think that everybody needs to be aware of just how quickly this job is going to come to an end, and how, that kind of regulation will probably make that happen even faster, because the more money they have to lose, the more money they're going to invest in getting rid of people altogether.
So the moral of the story is for all gig workers to seriously protect themselves by having other revenue streams. And I know this sounds just like a basic statement, but the reality is gig workers, at least the ones that I'm working with and see on a day-to-day basis, aren't doing this. They, in their minds, believe that they are multi-apping, and therefore they do have other safety nets to fall back on. But really, this gig economy is under the umbrella of financial insecurity. And that's what it boils down to. You also said something in one of your videos I thought was interesting, that these gig apps can play with your minds psychologically, and that you expressed that you had a FOMO, fear of missing out, and that these apps can become really addictive. And how do we kind of break away from this addictiveness that they have?
And I do think that that's probably one of the main differences between, something like an independent contractor freelancer gig versus, these apps, is that they really have it down to a science, how to get you on the road when they need you. And if you look at I can't tell you how many stories, how many people I've heard talk about saying, DoorDash said it was busy. I went out, I took one delivery, and then nothing for 2 hours. And what happens is they stay out on the road expecting to find more deliveries, and they just aren't there. And what they fail to realize is that DoorDash is only about self-preservation. They only care about themselves. They have an order that is not being taken, and so they send everybody in the area, but they send notifications to a bunch of people, and 10 people could come out for one order that isn't being taken. And then essentially it's obviously not busy anymore. So you got out of your pajamas, you drove across town for that one $10 order, and then now you're just sitting there for 2 hours and not doing much of anything. They've really learned on how to play that fear of missing out in order to achieve their own goals. And what people have to realize is that their goals are not your goals. They're not the same thing. And sometimes they might align, but they don't always. And that's really the difference between a business owner and somebody who's being taken advantage of also, is that you have to think about, if you're becoming a partner with somebody else, both of your goals have to align. And if they don't, then somebody's being taken advantage of. And that's essentially what's happening here, is these people are being taken advantage of. The goals don't align. And so that fear of missing out, that's one thing, but then the gamification is like almost a totally different issue.
Yes.
Every app has different, it might not be quite as addictive as like a video game, for example, but video games, if you take a look at the way people's brains react with video games, especially video game addicts, it looks exactly the same as somebody with a fast food addiction. It looks exactly the same as somebody with a sugar addiction. It looks exactly the same as somebody with a drug addiction. And so essentially what we're doing here is we're creating something of a chemical dependency on the sounds, on the levels, on the money. And in a way, it's a completely different relationship with work than we've ever had before. And it's not healthy. If anything, it's not healthy. And so I do personally believe, the science is scant on, there's not a lot out there like studying the effects of these apps on the brain. But I personally believe that in the long run, there will be a small but not insignificant subset of people who are essentially addicted and are going to have a really hard time getting off of the app, even as it's going down, and it's just going to ruin their lives. That's my personal opinion. That's speculation, but that's what I think.
Well, that's really interesting. I never thought of it like that. Even when I was an Instacart shopper, it is addicting. You're sitting there, Christian, wasting so much idle time just scrolling. And I call it scrolling like you're scrolling on a slot machine, looking for that right order that's going to hit. What a crazy way to live. And this is what I'm saying, living on a hamster wheel. The time wasted in a car doing that, not to mention the wear and tear in the gas. Your car is running, so you're wasting gas. I have spent hours doing this, all like looking like a nut job, seriously. And it's nuts, but that was the control and the addiction that app did have on me. So personally, I can relate. And I'm sure others that are watching can relate the same way. Because even at 9 o'clock, when the app wasn't even working, I would put it on just to see what was up. And my husband would say, "Would you be done for the day, please? You're done." Like, okay, oops, I forgot. I mean, it became that addictive for me too. So I completely back you up on what you're saying. And again, just to crux this all together, you're saying, not to scare anyone, take what you can with a master plan downstream.
Yeah.
The work. And that doesn't start next week. That starts 5 minutes ago. Have your plan in place, because these gig apps will spit you out faster than they took you in. And you already got in quickly, because all you have to do is sign up on a form. That's it. If you have car keys, you can work on these gig apps. Again, no disrespect, because I work on the apps too. But run as fast as you can and don't look back, is what you're saying. And you actually are proof that you did do that. I do want to talk about one more video that you recently posted, the dark side of the gig economy, why DoorDash is down. You expressed in that video and showed your vulnerability, your anguish, your journey, your process. And first, I want to say I was really moved by that. Thank you so much. If you guys have not seen that video, I'm going to link it in the description box below. Christian keeps it real and speaks from the heart. And can you kind of tell me why you made that video and where it came from, and a little bit about that, the dark side of the gig economy?
Well, first of all, I didn't mean for it to get so emotional. It just happened. I was just trying to go into 4 ways in which they kind of manipulate your brain. And that's sort of that I'm not getting any orders. I'm not getting many orders. I'm not getting big orders. And then that fear of missing out and the gamification, the things that we talked about earlier. But for me, like I said before, I was in a very difficult place financially and otherwise. I made a really bad business decision about 9 months before I came to Oregon, and it was just kind of a downward spiral from there. And I spent a lot of money. I spent all of our money trying to salvage what was my business back then from that bad business decision. And so obviously, I've been in tough financial situations before, but never with kids. And so in my mind, I was kind of thinking like, I've failed them. And I've even back before we came to Oregon, when I was still in London, I was applying for jobs, trying to figure myself out. I was getting turned down for everything, literally everything that I tried. And then I came to Oregon, did the same thing. I applied for everything that I could, never got a call back. And so there was like this panic in my heart. It was just like, I was kind of thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not taking care of my family. And then when I finally did, I was very reluctant. I'd heard a lot of bad things about DoorDash and the gig economy. And so when I did finally sign up, it was kind of like a savior, right? I can't believe I'm making $20 an hour, $22 an hour, or whatever it was. And I can just work whenever I want. But then at the same time, like sometimes I had this fear. I'd been in so much pain for those 9 months, and then it got good. But then every time it took even the smallest downturn, it would just be like this intense fear. I'm going back to this insecurity. And so I don't expect everybody to have the same intense feelings, but I do think this up and down, these small orders, these big orders, these guesses, essentially our brains are playing tricks with us. They're trying to find patterns in everything that we do. It's just a natural part of being human. And so we kind of like, we make up patterns. And so this up and down, these patterns that we're seeing, they kind of play on our fears and insecurities. For me, that was, I'm not good enough and I could never take care of my family. And so I do have to commit, DoorDash gave me an opportunity to save myself from essentially financial ruin. But at the same time, it was playing on my insecurity that I was just going to be right back where I started. Every single day, I had this thought going back and forth around my head saying, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be able to do this. I made a huge mistake and it's affecting other people's lives. And I should be ashamed of myself. And you know, I was doing, even at DoorDash, I was doing the best I could, but I really feel like the constant insecurity, the constant up and down, the constant guessing whether I was going to actually be able to make the money that I needed, it really like prolonged that period for a lot longer, if you know what I mean. So that's what I have to say about that. Yeah. And I just, when I broke down, it was just like this, I was remembering that fear that I was just like, I was letting everybody down.
That was so brave of you to share that, Christian. And I want to personally just say thank you for showing your raw, real emotions that I know so many gig workers can relate to. That fear that you showed resonates and is real. And again, you guys, if you haven't watched it, I'm linking it below. Please go watch it because so many of us have been in that same situation. So just know that you're not alone. I'm personally proud of you for, again, having the courage to make that video and to dig your way out of your situation, your circumstance. And you did that. So for DoorDash, you got to thank them for that. And you have, but like you said, the insecurity long-term is just not a way to live. It's just, it's almost tormenting. Use this as a stepping stone to do something else. And would you agree with that?
Totally. It's absolutely DoorDash, gig work in general. It is a tool that you can use and you can use it as a piece in your master plan, in your puzzle, but it cannot be the whole thing. It just doesn't work. There's too much insecurity. There's the money in the long term is not good enough. It doesn't add anything to your skills except anxiety. It makes me anxious. Maybe that's better. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. It's just, it's a great tool for certain people at a certain time in their life, but that's it. That's all it should be.
Well stated, Christian. What is next for your channel? What do you have going? What are your next videos? Are you going to talk more about gig work? Are you going to talk about your photography business? I noticed that you had your daughter in one of the videos, which is so cute. You don't have that many videos up, and I see that you're growing pretty quickly.
I've kind of dabbled in YouTube over the long term. We decided at the beginning of this year that we're going to start taking YouTube very seriously, because we think that it's one path towards freedom. I've been working as a photographer, but I work almost exclusively online, and I travel. For example, I work at hotels in Mexico as a videographer. Wow. My channel is entirely devoted towards money, entrepreneurship, travel, lifestyle, and health. And so I kind of started on this journey with gig work because that's where I started. But I'm gonna be diversifying, just like I tell people to diversify. I'm gonna be looking at more entrepreneurship videos. People who come to my channel in the future, they will see some stuff about gig work, but I'm gonna be talking a lot about, like for example, I'm planning a video about how I made $5,000 my first month as a photographer. And you don't have to be a photographer to apply the same principles. I'm going to essentially try to put together a strategy that other people can follow in any field in order to just jump in and be a professional right from the beginning. Essentially, I'm trying to diversify a little bit. I'm creating a bunch of different types of videos that will hopefully appeal to different people, but kind of in that same niche of entrepreneurs, of self-starters, of people who want to build something bigger than themselves.
That is so incredible. And I can't wait to watch your new videos as you put them up. And you guys, I'm going to again link Christian's channel in the description box below. His channel name is Call Me Lil, what does that stand for? Call Me Lil.
Lil is my nickname. It's what my wife calls me. So my name is Christian, but you can call me Lil. So anybody can come up and you'll see in the comments, people do actually call me Lil. Hey, Lil.
Okay, love it. So that's his channel name. You guys definitely go show him support and subscribe if you are interested. Christian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with all of us on this channel. I know you are in London. London is one of my all-time favorite places. I'm a little envious that you're there. Maybe sometime you can show us a little bit of the streets of London. Yeah,
yeah, totally. Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will definitely be, my next few videos are actually going to be walking around the streets of London. So if you want to see London, then yeah, that's kind of my style. I walk and talk, and yeah, I'll definitely be in the city center pretty soon here.
Christian, thank you so much. Congratulations on the success of your last videos. And again, you guys, I do hope you go support Christian. He's such a great guy with so much to say from the heart. And that's what's important. I will talk to you soon. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you very much.